Going to you in 3, 2, 1.
What's up, guys? My name is Gootecks. Today is episode 7, and this is the show where we talk about big picture things like what's going on in the wide world of esports. I'm joined by my two favorite esports veterans. I got Zorine on the left or the right, whichever side that is, and I got Slasher coming in all the way from New York City on this side of the screen. Guys, we got so much esports news, topics, and discussions, but first, how are you guys doing?
You know, before we started the show, we even made sure you knew who was on the left and who was on the right. And we're 10 shows in, and we're still not going to get this.
Was I wrong?
No, you got it right. He
eventually. You got it right eventually.
He didn't know the direction of it. He was like on my, and then he just
I went that way.
Not really knowing if it was left or right.
1% better every time, Slasher.
That's right, baby.
We got.
Also, Ryan, question. Now that I've heard you intro the show a number of times, is the FGC officially esports? Because you don't mention esports and the FGC here. You keep saying this is the esports show, and then we cover the FGC, which means by de facto, the way you were describing it, that FGC is now esports. Says Todd Show.
I can neither confirm nor deny the FGC being esports.
Okay.
That's like saying our pro wrestlers and MMA fighters athletes? Of course, yes they are. Are they sports ball athletes? Not necessarily, but they could be considered athletes. They're obviously athletes because they are, competing in a physical activity, which makes them very similar to sports ball athletes, but not necessarily the same. In the same way that there are many different species of monkeys and mammals, but
what the fuck are you talking about?
Did you just compare esports athletes to monkeys and animals? What is going on?
Yeah, I did. So I can break it down into terms so that the number one esports consultant's brain can wrap it around that concept.
This is a really good deflection, Ryan. Thank you for that. That made no sense, but I hope all the viewers out there.
Which part of that made no sense?
Enjoyed that at home.
It's similar, but it's not the same. It's not exactly the same thing. There's certainly a lot of similarities.
You need to introduce the show as all things esports and FGC. Right.
Okay. All
right.
Okay. Sure.
Mr. FGC.
That is a good note. Good note.
Yeah. Write that down. Do you have a whiteboard behind you? Can you put the FGC is not part of esports behind you? I read that on our Kappa, and apparently that's true. So.
Noted. We have it down. Yeah, we have that. We have that down.
But we have lots of FGC stuff to talk about today anyway, as everyone knows. Really exciting. EVO finally, listed all 9 games that they have at the tournament this year. Whew, man, did the internet eat that up.
Yes. Let's go down the list from top to bottom. If you guys were watching or just missed the live stream, there was the EVO Games reveal just a moment ago. Mr. Wizard as well as Markman revealed the games lineup from here in Las Vegas. And so we can go down the list from top to bottom. We got Tekken 7, Street Fighter 5, Blaze Blue, Cross Tag Battle. Can't talk today. Super Smash Brothers Ultimate, Dragon Ball Fighters, Soul Calibur 6, Mortal Kombat 11, Samurai Showdown, and arguably a very big surprise, Under Night and Birth, EXE latest. Sorry, I just know it as UNIST. I
literally did not know that was an acronym for something. And now I do. I always thought it was just UNIST.
Good thing you came to class today, Rod.
Thank you.
All sorts of things about the FGC.
That's what I'm talking about.
So let's so now you can learn us a few things about esports today. It's a fair trade, Rod.
No problem.
You got
but yeah,
stay number one.
Exactly. This is why you're number one, Ron.
I'm always down to learn.
All right. So, anyways, really interesting announcement of games. I think probably the biggest question on a lot of people's minds were, hey, where's Smash Brothers Melee? Because obviously there's a huge contingency of Melee fans and many amazing Melee moments that have happened throughout the years at EVO, of which they had a very nice montage to sort of give it a send-off. But as of right now, there is only one Smash Brothers game.
Okay, now Ryan, you've been the host of the show, right, Zorine? We could all kind of say this. But out of the three of us here, I want to know your opinion, because I've already been tweeting my hot takes, and I'm sure Zorine probably is pretty similar to me. But you're the fighting game expert here, Ryan, Mr. PodChamp. Please tell me what you think about the EVO 2019.
Okay, yeah.
Lineup.
Just pull your mic back just a little bit. I think that the lineup, for me, I think the biggest surprise is Samurai Showdown, because there wasn't any sort of announcement about like a solid concrete release date. So I'm super stoked to see that. I think the other slight surprise is that there is no Dead or Alive 6 included on the lineup.
You're surprised by this?
I mean,
Ryan, did you not hear it is not part of EVO's core values? Why would you think that Dead or Alive would be on the event?
Because EVO Japan I don't know, because they were advertising on EVO Japan. I don't know. That's just
core values, Ryan. Core values. Values.
You might be right.
Come on.
Maybe that's why it's not on the lineup. I don't know. I don't play DOA. I don't have any sort of inside knowledge. I think that maybe there's an opportunity for DOA players to unite at the community EVO. What do they call it? The community EVO tournaments, like basically the side tournaments at EVO. So maybe there's an opportunity for the DOA community. The EVO community championships, giving the DOA scene and community some chance to shine, but it's not included in the official lineup. So I think that the two last games, Samurai Showdown and Under Night, are the two surprises. I'm not surprised that Melee is not included, because I suspect that Nintendo did not want it included. So that sounds like a business decision to me. So I don't know. I mean, I was kind of hoping that, maybe there'd be like some big surprise, but yeah, there wasn't. But that's okay. I mean, I think the only time that there was ever like a really, really big surprise in terms of the games lineup was the year that they did the fundraiser for breast cancer research, which is essentially how Melee made it back into the EVO lineup after raising over 6 figures for breast cancer research, with the Skullgirls community coming in at a really close second that year. So yeah, I think it's a solid lineup. I think a lot of people are going to be super excited. Basically, every community is represented. In terms of there's Capcom games, there's 3D fighters, there's anime fighters, there's Smash Brothers. So it sounds like it's going to be an awesome event. It's the first weekend of August, so the road to EVO starts now. So yeah, I'm excited.
That's a great non-answer, Zorine. What do you?
What do you have to say? What?
No, we're gonna come back to you, Zorine. What do you think?
About the EVO. Okay, so the EVO game lineup in general, I think actually, and you might be disappointed to hear this, Slasher, but I kind of echo Ryan. I think it was actually a really good balance of they addressing all the communities as best as they could. And I know Melee is kind of its own thing, and they're probably very disappointed. And I actually haven't tweeted anything about the lineup because I think everyone did all the talking for me this time around, and the only takeaway I had was like, "There's free water now, yeah, that's great." So
but that's probably the most important thing of all of EVO that we have.
It really is. I've been like, I've been there as a competitor as well as media, like covering it, and like they're very two different like roles at this event, but at the same time, like when there's no water, you really notice it. So that's probably the most, like, the thing that stood out the most to me. But the games lineup, I thought it was actually really funny that they kind of addressed Melee with like this video that almost felt like a eulogy send off, right? Like it was so like somber, and like it was like paying respects to Melee almost, like in a way that they were like, yeah, we know we're killing it, but here's like the sad video to go with it. And like I was like, man, this is I didn't know whether to laugh or to feel bad for them, those poor Melee players.
I think that it's done quite well over the years, and there's still, let's say, Smash Brothers focused events such as Genesis, that can keep the Melee dream alive. But I will say, to the small amount of Melee people that may be watching, is that like so many of us in Capcom games and other fighting games have seen their favorite games come and go. And the only way that we can move forward as people and as a community is to make the best out of the newest game that is the most popular and the most likely to be supported.
Okay, Ryan. You are from what I know you as like a friend, a third strike player. I don't know if I will ever consider you like a Street Fighter 4 or 5 player. You always be like a third strike player to me.
I will always be a third strike player in my heart.
So, like, I get it. I understand you. I'm a Quake 2 player. I played it as an old as fuck game as well. I know how it is to have like my game be surpassed by another game. But like a Capcom game has pretty much been the premier title at EVO for like, I don't know, every single year of the last 10 or 11 years, maybe besides Dragon Ball FighterZ last year, and even then Street Fighter V was still kind of the last game. Mm-hmm. It was still considered like the headlining game. So you're talking about like, oh, us Capcom gamers, we don't have it good. You had like the main title at EVO literally every single year. Every single year. That was
a diplomatic way of telling the Melee community that I saw my game die a terrible death, and but I moved on.
Yeah, that's but fine. Your game and my game doesn't have 150,000 people still watching it, okay? Our games are fucking dead with like 1,000 or something people watching it and maybe a few hundred people entering. Melee still has gotten the second highest viewership last year. It's broken EVO's concurrent viewer record several times over the years, and it was the probably the premier game for a number of years while the EVO has had issues here and there. So I really do not see the comparison to like older Capcom titles as like a fair shake to Melee. Third Strike is fucking dead. Other games are fucking dead. It's not like Ultimate is here and Melee got no interest or viewership or player entrance, and that is why it's a fair thing to take it off. And honestly, that video, while it for Evo and Mr. Wizard, it might have been like a good way to send off the game, to show respect to the community and everything they've done. I thought it was pretty fucking lame. It looked super disrespectful to me, and it came off pretty shitty from looking at it on Twitter and seeing pro players responsive from the Melee community. No one took that video well. There is no one in the Melee community who the video was for actually took this video to heart as like a good send off for the game. And even like the people on the outside, like myself, doesn't see this as being a sincere way of sending off the game. You even have Markman asking like he already knew the question. It was a setup question. Markman's like, I'm going to be the first one to ask you, where's Melee? And they had already the video like ready to go. So they already like knew beforehand. Obviously, that would be an obvious question for a Markman to ask, but it was like all set up. It seemed completely and entirely lame. I I think it's really cool for Eunice and Samurai Shodown to be represented, and you are correct in that Evo in general for this game lineup has gotten the games that should be there and new communities like these two and give them love, and I think that is fair to do. But out of all the things you said, Ryan, and it's something that I tweeted about my tinfoil hat speculation, I could definitely see Nintendo wanting all the players, all the spotlight, all the viewership on Smash Ultimate, and they do not, under any circumstances, want Smash Melee, the game that they cannot sell copies for and make money off of, to take away the spotlight from Ultimate at EVO.
Agreed. Yeah. So with that taken into account, then what was the alternative? Not do a video? Then everybody gets all mad, and then they're like, oh, what? So like what? Us Melee players, we don't mean nothing no more? And it's like, dude, they made a nice video for you guys. Nintendo likely, I mean, my tinfoil hat on is on too. I think it's a Nintendo decision, not an Evo decision.
Yeah, no, it totally makes sense. I mean, it's very hard for Nintendo to monetize Melee at all. I don't even know if they're doing anything around it. Like, I know Genesis broke viewership records, but what does that actually mean, right? Like, sure, like there's a huge community out there for it. There's a really, really large viewership base for it as well for the game. But like, what does that mean to Nintendo? Like, if they were smart, maybe they could do something around it. But I guess, like, obviously they're not, because the game's been around for so long and they haven't like thrown a bone at all. So it's like, well, it's either you take Ultimate and like put that up on the stage, or you don't get anything at all. So
yeah, I mean, that seems like a pretty likely possibility to me. So I mean,
well, if this is Nintendo's doing, I will be doing some digging after the show is over.
Okay, if both of us have tinfoil hats on, is it really that too crazy of a conspiracy theory?
No, but I will actually try to do some journalism here and actually find out what the deal is.
The journalism
with
Whoa,
Evo.
More journalism. Yeah. All right. Well,
I mean, if you don't remember, in 2013, when Melee was not going to be broadcasted at EVO, that was actually me reporting it, because Mr. Wizard went on Live on 3, and then we got that info out of him, and then because of that, Melee ended up being at EVO that year. So actually, it was all because of me that really Melee got on. Because if you remember,
wow. Okay.
Mr. Wizard saying that Melee was going to be broadcasted, then got the entire uproar from the entire internet because Nintendo wasn't going to allow EVO to broadcast the game. And I got everyone to complain, and then Nintendo had to reverse the decision and let Melee be at EVO that year. So
essentially what you're saying is that in one fell swoop, the world's number one esports consultant did more than the community that raised 6 figures for breast cancer research.
No. No. Thank you for that setup, Ryan. That was a solid one.
But okay, all right. But I will give you credit. You did do, you did do a little bit to start the fire underneath Nintendo. And who knows? I mean, maybe...
I am actually going to try to find out.
Yeah, well, I mean, there was an exit. Reggie, the CEO or president or whatever of Nintendo USA, has stepped. He's retired, and now some dude named Bowser is his replacement, which is all kinds. You can't. Truth is stranger than fiction. You can't make this shit up. But maybe he's open to hearing the cries from the Melee community to, save Melee for another 12 months. I don't know.
So the second part of this is that at the end of the stream, Mr. Wizard announced the games for the Sunday main stage, which are, usually like a second announcement that EVO makes, but I guess it all came as a package this time. And they will be Street Fighter V, Tekken 7, Smash Ultimate, and BlazBlue Tag, and they are reducing the games from 5 to 4 due to the length of the day, which I generally agree on. Having EVO end at 3 a.m. Eastern time is pretty shit. Ending midnight for everyone in Vegas is also pretty shit. So all around, I think that's probably a good decision. to reduce the game from 5 to 4.
Definitely. 8 a.m. start time is ambitious.
But really, no Dragon Ball Fighters, the game that broke EVO's highest peak concurrent record of all fucking time last year, is not going to be on the main stage on Sunday.
Okay.
What the fuck?
I have 2 theories about this. I have 2 theories. Okay. The first is the obvious one. Dragon Ball Fighters is a very long game, right? So, and I think the length of the matches last year really pushed and delayed the schedule back, which is why Street Fighter V actually, like, finals took place so late, and people kind of underestimated how long it would be. The second was, I think there's some, like, licensing things going on around, you know, not only Bandai Namco and Toei, but also Capcom. Like, they're all kind of fighting to be the last game, the final game to be played at EVO. And I know that they put certain restrictions on events if you do not put their game last. And the order, like, has yet to be confirmed. So we don't know which one is going to be the last game yet.
I mean, come on, Zorine. Obviously,
obviously Street Fighter this time around, yes. But the fact that Dragon Ball Fighters isn't even in the running kind of tells you about, like, who ended up either putting up the most money or, like, you know, just backing off in general. So I think this was like a licensing money-related issue that EVO encountered.
I suspect that is also the case, but I have no inside info. I also think that there's a chance that whatever was the mysterious reason, which we suspect was licensing related to Dragon Ball being pulled from EVO Japan, Anime Ascension, DreamHack, and all these other events, that is sort of also, whatever that factor was, is also a factor in this situation. But I also agree with Zorine that because it is such a long game and there's so much variance between how long it can take, and let's say that they were trying to revisit this idea of broadcasting the finals on, you know, network or cable television, having the variance of what Dragon Ball could be in terms of it could be either this long or way longer does not work at all for the restrictions that come along with broadcast television. So moving it to Saturday could theoretically give it, and I'm not saying that this is happening at all, I'm just saying it could, in theory, pave the way for a Dragon Ball Saturday broadcast on, you know, TV, while saving Sunday's more predictable lineup and also making that available for broadcast as well on probably even multiple channels as they did before.
I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not convinced that Dragon Ball is going to be broadcast on television ever.
No, I'm not saying that it will. I'm just saying that that would not really be a possibility. And the fact that it threw a monkey wrench into the schedule last year probably precluded it from being in the running this year.
Is Mortal Kombat not being there a surprise at all?
For Sunday?
Sunday, yeah.
What was the last NRS game that was like on the Sunday main stage?
Wasn't Injustice 2 like a 10 a.m. game?
I don't remember.
Sunday.
I mean, I think the move from 5 games to 4 games is a lot more manageable. Mm-hmm. And it, from a player's perspective, I think that having it at, you know, being first on the lineup on Sunday morning is the worst possible spot, both, let's say, from a performance standpoint as well as a hype standpoint. So I think, I mean, obviously I'm just speculating, but I mean, I can see how if I were a competitor, I might be salty that my favorite game that I was best at wasn't on Sunday finals, but it could end up working out better in the long run for it to happen on Saturday.
I mean, 99% the order is going to be BB Tag, Tekken, Smash Ultimate, and Street Fighter V.
Yeah, that seems reasonable. If I were a Mortal Kombat player, I'm not totally sure that I would want the 9 a.m. or 10 a.m. spot from Blaze Blue anyways. That's what I'm saying.
That's true.
That is a tough schedule. Not to say, hey, whatever, you're a pro player, make it happen. But I'm just saying, like, from a competitive standpoint, it's a lot easier to manage like nighttime finals than it is like crack of dawn. But yeah, so I think overall interesting, good Evo lineup. Heavily looking forward to everything that shapes up between now and the first week of August. They mentioned that the tickets, I think, are on sale. So Evo is going to be August 2nd through 4th here in Las Vegas at the Mandalay Bay. I'll be there. This will be Evo number whatever 2003 was my first one. So however many years it's been in a row.
17 years.
17 years in a row.
Wow.
It'll be for me. Come hell or high water. I'll be there. What about you guys?
Are you going to be competing?
Am I going to be competing?
That's
am currently playing. I'm currently playing the meta game right now.
Yeah, he's gonna be in the third strikes, like the strike side tournament, dude. What are you talking about?
Yeah, I didn't specify
right
what
there.
you'd be competing in.
I don't see myself. I mean, who knows? I don't see myself competing in anything in any sort of meaningful capacity.
Don't you have your character in 5 now? Sort of.
I just don't. I don't have.
Bro, you're like bringing up old wounds. He's like in pain responding to your questions.
I mean, it's a sensitive subject, I mean, if you guys really want to talk about it, we can. But I mean,
Yeah, what's going on, Ryan? Don't you want to win Evo? Don't you want to be the first ever American champion of Street Fighter?
I mean,
at Evo.
To be honest, getting top 8 at Evo is the one thing that I have not done. I mean, not to say that I've done everything as a competitor, but I feel like I've done it all as a competitor with the exception of making top 8. But if I were to decide that that was something that I wanted to pursue, I also don't think that that would be something that I would be able to accomplish this year. But
well, Street Fighter might even be alive by next year, Ryan. So I mean, you don't have any more chances to kill.
You're right. You might be right.
Actually, going off the discussion we actually had maybe last week or 2 weeks ago, now that we know the lineup, predictions on which will get the peak viewership of the weekend and the most amount of entrants of the weekend.
I think peak. Okay, most amount of entrants, I think, is going to be Smash Brothers, hands down. Peak viewership, I think it also depends on the timing, because let's say, for example, I believe last year was behind by like an hour or two, and I think that definitely contributes to viewership fluctuations. So I think it depends on how Sunday goes, but I think Smash has the edge for Sunday finals viewership. Yeah.
I think Ultimate will have the most entrants. It being a new game and B, a Smash game, definitely is very much in its favor. Interestingly, Smash was before Tekken last year on the Sunday finals. Tekken was actually afterwards. And I think the Evo organizers have actually mentioned something about before that Smash finals, when they happen on the Sunday, usually people will come watch it and then leave as soon as they're done and not actually return for the other games. So the mass exodus of audience is a issue that they need to deal with and might actually push Ultimate to an earlier time bracket than we might think. It might even be the second game, which would potentially mean that Tekken would be the third game and then Street Fighter being the final game. So I don't know. I think Ultimate, most players for Ultimate and probably most viewership for Ultimate as well, just because it's the new game. it's probably the one everyone's going to be most interested in, and it's the only Smash game that's going to be played on the Sunday main stage as well. Eat your heart out, Nintendo.
I've got to generally agree. I think Ultimate will probably get the most amount of entrants, probably followed closely behind by Dragon Ball and Street Fighter. I don't think we'll probably have too many surprises. Maybe Mortal Kombat beats out Tekken in the end, just because it's the first year.
There's no way.
There's
no way.
I mean, I don't think so either, but the NRS scene has like semi-impressed me lately, even though they've had its own drama.
I highly doubt it.
Yeah,
Tekken's growth has been so steady and strong, like year over year, even though the game's been out for a couple of years now. Like, it's just continued to grow, and like they've reached a number that I'm pretty sure the NRS games have not reached quite yet.
Yeah, the other thing is that it's not the hardcore scene that generates the viewership. It's the super casual.
But that's just the entrance. I was just talking about the amount of
entrance. The entrance. Oh, okay.
This is just entrance.
You're saying that it's possible that it'll be
MK
which game?
MK beats second in terms of entrance.
I don't know.
But honestly, I think it's also possible it beats viewership too. I also think MK could possibly.
Viewership, maybe I'll give it that, but entrance, no, I don't think it has a chance.
So, Zorine, to your point, I really think it's important the order. From what I've from watching Evo every year and also attending Evo, for several years. While it does depend on what the Street Fighter top 8 ends up being. Like, the more Western players, the more American players, the more diversity in both characters and places where players are from, that, of course, increases viewership for all the games. But it kind of is most important in Street Fighter, where it has the most international competitive community, where a lot of the other games, like the NRS scene, will probably be a bunch of Americans and maybe like a few Europeans in there and no Japanese players. So if Smash Ultimate is the next to last game, usually that game ends up being the highest viewership, not the final game. Street Fighter ends up getting the most viewership if it's an incredible final, like Long Island Joe is in the top 8, Punk is supposed to win and Taquito makes an incredible comeback. That is the type of shit where Street Fighter can get peak viewership. But I think if Ultimate is the second to last game, that will be, as you mentioned, that will be the peak viewership for the weekend. But if Ultimate ends up being second and Tekken ends up being before Street Fighter, I actually think Street Fighter has a good chance of maybe being peak. If it has a really good top 8 and it has pretty good character diversity, I think there's a solid chance Street Fighter can finally get its fucking shit together this year and, show everyone why it's the premier title. I mean, I want Street Fighter to regain, the top spot in terms of viewership for Evo. Like having like Melee and then Dragon Ball all be the games to top Evo and not Street Fighter, which is the headlining game every single year, is kind of like a fucking insult to the overall community. And I think Capcom has done a better job than before of getting the game into shape. So maybe by the time Evo rolls around, Street Fighter V will be in a good spot where it could contend for the top game of the weekend.
Numbers are just numbers, Rod. There's not necessarily a correlation between what's best and what is currently most popular.
No, yeah, but if the game is in a bad state, it won't do well viewership-wise.
Right. So that means that all of these games are doing just fine. The real question is, how will Samurai Showdown do? I take it you guys are not Samurai Showdown.
I had no idea what this game is.
I know.
Yeah, of course you wouldn't. Of course you wouldn't, Rod and Zorine. I don't know what it's like in Australia, so none of your credibility is at risk here. But Samurai Showdown is far and away my favorite franchise that has not been resurrected in the modern era, and I really hope that it's super fun, because that game was a blast back in the day. But I'm sure I don't expect you to understand any of that, Rod, because you were too busy, being all esports in the mid 90s, I guess. playing your Quakes and your Dooms.
I was playing my Dooms and my Warcraft 2. My Dooms and my Warcraft 2 were my games.
The OG.
Oh, and SimCity.
Yeah, well,
for sure.
Samurai Showdown is one of those games that a lot of old people like myself are excited for. Yeah, I mean, dude, it's the game was a rev, and I wasn't even a fan of SNK games back then, like Art of Fighting and Fatal Fury. I was not into that at all. But Samurai Showdown, now there's a fighting game. Ooh. Oh, hit me in the fighting game feels. Oh my god, I forgot these parts of my body and brain were still there, to be honest.
So see you in the top 8 for Samurai Showdown.
You know what?
Yeah.
If there was one game I think that I'd be competing in at Evo, it would be Samurai Showdown. That would be hilarious. Oh my god, who knows? Maybe we're onto something. It's good thing I came to class today.
Well, Samurai Showdown would be a game you could finally get top 8 in, so I think you probably should do that.
Oh damn. Brutal.
Maybe where it hurts. Oh.
I mean, I'd be surprised if you made top 128 in Street Fighter 5, so at this point you better take it where you can get it.
I've been making it out of pools since before you even knew that fighting games were a thing, bro. So it's okay. You can't my abilities, my placings, all this stuff is totally fine and well established.
You know what? I believe in you. PogChamps in the chat. Everyone encourage Ryan to get his top 8 finally this year at Evo in Samurai Showdown. This is really the play. PogChamps in chat. Honestly, I didn't even think about this. Thank you, Zorine. This is a sick idea. It's always a really good idea as we've seen in esports to play the game that nobody plays and to get really good placements early on in the first tournaments.
Yeah.
And I think this is truly your moment.
It might be. Hey, it might be. Who knows? I mean, I haven't played it. I would love to play it. SNK, if you're out there, let me know. Let me know what's up. I mean, I'm just sitting here on the sidelines like an old man being like, oh, like, I don't have what it takes to compete in Street Fighter anymore. Like, I don't care, but hey, who knows? Maybe I'm just like, I've just been waiting to clear my schedule for just some sort of, opportunity like Samurai Showdown, like the return of Samurai Showdown. Who knows? Who knows? Hey, I mean, here's the thing. If there's a PC port and the netcode is godlike and the training mode is good, I mean, I'll play it. Like, I would definitely play it. There is that nostalgia factor. It's an official Evo lineup game. I mean, I'm definitely trying to play that game for sure. But, who knows? You know where to find me. I'm easy to find.
That was beautiful. I'm excited for this.
Also not holding my breath though. So the real question is, are you guys, are the two of you going to be at Evo, and are we going to kick off Evo week by doing the Untitled Esports Show live from Las Vegas?
Okay, well, firstly, I already know I'm going to be at Evo. I already booked my flights. And
there you go.
A whole bunch of Australian FGC folks who will be there as well. So we're kind of like planning to like go wild in Vegas. So it's kind of like it's like an Evo thing as well as like the Aussies thing for me. So I'll definitely be there. Definitely down to kick off the Untitled Esports Show live from Las Vegas. That would be amazing. As for whether or not I'll be competing, probably not. I was there for work last year, so I didn't have any time to like do any competing, sadly. But who knows? Maybe I will.
Probably plays better than gootecks here. I haven't gotten the last 2 years, unfortunately, but I plan to return to Evo this year.
Sorry,
to do the show with you two.
Sorry, the world's #1 esports consultant didn't come to one of the biggest tournaments. Well, I'm not just one of the biggest open tournament on the planet. So what does that tell you? Maybe FGC isn't esports at all, or maybe you're not #1. Which is it, Slasher?
The FGC isn't esports.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Right. And chat is definitely going to agree with me. Thank you, chat. PogChamps and chat for the FGC, not me.
But actually, speaking of the chat, actually, Z makes a good point. We could do this show. Maybe we could do this show as a panel at Evo.
Yes,
which would be
because Mr. Wizard loves me. We have a great relationship right now, and I am sure he will be down for this. I'm sure.
All right, well, I'm sure there's gonna be signs with your face at the front of Evo, like "Do not let this man in." We're just gonna have to Skype you in on a laptop, dude. Like on the panel, have like a laptop with your face, and you're like the third host of our esports show.
Well, I mean, it's okay. I'm like so white that if he puts it on a white background, it'll just blend in with a wall, and no one will be able to like tell that's who I am. I'll be able to walk in, no problem.
Okay, well, either way, maybe that's an opportunity that we can put in our brains for the back burner. But if you guys did get here early, then we could probably find some time and a place to do like a proper in-person kickoff show on a Tuesday to kick off Evo week. Because I don't know about you, but I personally can foresee a future, not this year necessarily, but a future where Evo is, of course, Friday, Saturday, Sunday as a competitor, but there are activities and things going on all throughout the week leading up to Evo, similar to the way that Ultra in Music Festival is in Miami, where it's basically like electronic music week down there, and over here with EDC, you have like EDC week, which is all like business. I mean, obviously there's parties and stuff too, but it's like music business stuff leading up to it. Because if you're really like in this industry, right, like you're probably here most of the week anyways. Mm-hmm. So I can see a world where that happens, but maybe not this year. But hey, maybe we get together on the Tuesday before Evo and then jumpstart it.
Yeah, party at Gootecks' house, everyone.
Yeah, party at Gootecks' house, everybody.
Yeah. Hey,
Let's go, Ryan.
Don't worry, I'm going to post PogChamp's address all over the internet after the show. So everyone's invited. Everybody's invited. Mm-hmm.
Activities leading up to the Evo pre-party.
We had a lot of people. We had a lot of people stay here this past year. So I mean, who knows? If you guys want to pile up and sleep in air mattresses on the floor, knock yourselves out. Be my guest. Exactly. That's this is how I know that we're not quite esports yet, because everybody comes couches on the floor. So.
But what is esports?
Yes. Let's talk. Yes, moving on. What is esports? Should we go? Okay, all right. Yeah, that's a smooth transition to the big announcement that actually took place. I think like right after we finished yesterday, or excuse me, last week, where there was a big announcement that Wednesday Night Fights, Esports Arena, NBC, and Walmart are teaming up. You can't make these things up, everybody, but they are teaming up for an event that is a series of events that are going to culminate in a live broadcast of a NorCal versus SoCal 5-on-5 main event on NBC after Saturday Night Live. This could be a monumental occasion, could go down as a quite the milestone in fighting game / esports history. Huge names involved in all this stuff. I mean, I think it's quite historic, and I am looking forward to seeing if this is the start of all kinds of interesting things going forward in the future. But I'll let you guys talk first, and then I'll save a tiny little anecdote for the end.
Mm-hmm. So yes, lots of big names involved. For what this actually looks like, basically Level Up will be bringing its weekly Wednesday night fight series tournaments, which I think anyone who's in the FGC kind of is aware of this and knows what it is. And they will be hosting these at select Walmart locations. So there are 5 Walmarts that they've chosen for this. They're in California, Washington, Colorado, Oklahoma, and Texas. So, nice spread of states. And as for the broadcasting on NBC, that will be totally new. And I'm real curious how this is going to actually work in terms of like which states get broadcast at what time and how it all works, like with the regional channels. Because I'm not super familiar with NBC. But I know like they are like a regional sports channel. Correct me if I'm wrong. Any T-Sports people who know about this?
Well, like for example, Saturday Night Live is live on the East Coast, and then the West Coast gets it 3 hours after. It's not like Saturday Night Live runs at 8:30. Oh, is it really? Oh, wow. So producer Ops is telling me SNL is actually live broadcasted all over the world at the same time. I didn't even know that.
That's crazy. Cool. But yeah, esports. FGC is esports apparently.
I mean, really though, this is the best game to. Fighting games have always been pretty much, and Street Fighter has always been pretty much the best game to show off in a TV format. All things considered, there is no better title.
Exactly. See, this is why you're number one, Rod. See, if I say it, it just sounds, it means more if somebody else says it.
I mean, of course it's going to be Street Fighter to be that game. I have actually a question for you, Ryan. Looking at the player lineup, for NorCal, you have Samurai, LPN, Alex Miner. SoCal, you have Chris Tartarian, Dankadillis, and SDP. Mm-hmm. And from what I understand, these players probably are the best in NorCal and SoCal right now in general. Like they probably got the lineup pretty correct in terms of the first invitations. But I do have to wonder, considering it's going to be the debut, this is going to be like a pretty big deal. It's going to be Street Fighter on television live after Saturday Night Live. And although most of the people watching on TV are not really going to have any idea what the fuck Street Fighter is, or esports, or competitive gaming, or like any of that shit, there'll probably be a good number of those people. Do you not feel like there should be some more star power in the initial invitational lineup? There are 2 wild cards, each for NorCal and SoCal, but you don't have any of the traditional, most popular, even American Street Fighter players currently listed. I would even say Chris T is probably the most popular of those 6 players, and he has like a whole bunch of baggage himself within the fighting game community. There's no Justin so far. Do you feel like there should be more star power considering the event, or should it just be the best players and they have done a good job inviting the right people?
That is a great question, and I can only put on multiple hats that I can wear in this instance. So I look at it. I look at this as an experiment in, obviously testing not just esports on TV, but testing fighting games on TV, specifically for NBC. And, when I think about your point about star power and, do they need a Justin? Do they need one of these other people to, let's say give Street Fighter V that oomph on network television TV? I'm not going to say that it wouldn't help and that, they wouldn't benefit from that. However, the way that the event is set up seems to me to be, from a production standpoint, probably like a low risk. So let's say low investment of things that could be that let's say a higher budget might afford. So for example, think about E-League, right? So, I was on E-League, lots of other people that are...
Love those shades.
Thank you. The concept behind E-League, as well as the budget that it takes to execute a series like that, I think is far, far, far outside of the scope of this particular project. I think that I have zero inside info. I have no idea how this came about. I don't know the history, but I can see how, I can see how this could have been an attractive experiment to people cutting the checks at NBC, whereas, because this is something that is primarily chosen based on like just straight up, tournament results, that sort of lends itself to being much less costly to execute, as opposed to a concept like E-League, which is similar in the sense that it's also a tournament, but much different in the sense of it's an invitational and they handpicked players and they had all this Turner money to spend on the project. I think for this, the outlay for NBC is likely to be so much lower than, let's say what Turner is spending on E-League, which means that it's an experiment that's happening in the middle of the night on a weekend when theoretically nobody's watching TV anyways. So because it's such a low investment, they don't necessarily need it to do super well. I think in this instance, all that really needs to happen in order for this to be considered a success from the NBC side of things is that nobody dies and nothing catches on fire.
Wow. So no expectations, no disappointments.
Exactly. I mean, it's not like Street Fighter's never been on TV before, right? So the last couple of times, Evo, not this past year, but, the 2 years prior, Evo and Capcom Cup were both broadcast on ESPN. And, I think that NBC is coming into it really early, but at the same time has two very distinct models to look at. One is Evo Top 8 and the other is E-League. This probably seemed like a much less risky proposition for NBC and everybody else involved, because this is really just an extension of what Wednesday Night Fights and Level Up have been doing for years and years, long before NBC even knew Street Fighter was a thing, long before Esports Arena existed. Who else was the other one involved? Esports Arena, NBC. Oh, Walmart. And long before Walmart was selling PCs at their Esports Arena affiliate stores.
I actually have a question for each of you, unless you're going to follow up, Zorine.
No, please go ahead.
So as we talk about this deal with NBC, and we just talked about an hour-long discussion on Evo, most noticeably last year, after 2 years of Street Fighter and I believe Smash 4 was on ESPN and Disney XD respectively, there was no TV deal for Evo 2018. And from what I understand, the viewership was pretty fucking garbage. Even though Street Fighter might be the best video game to put on TV in terms of like the spectator experience for the people that don't know what the fuck is going on, the viewership was fucking awful. I know it was at least as awful on ESPN 2. I don't know how Disney XD did, but there was no Evo 2018 deal. Should we be fearful that this NBC experiment is also going to get terrible, terrible ratings?
Firstly, was it that bad? I thought I saw a report with numbers showing that fighting games was actually among the most watched among all the other, when compared to the other esports that were broadcast on television. Which I know
compared to like Overwatch League, Overwatch League did awful. So if you're comparing it to like that, okay, sure. But I don't think it like did too good like on its own anyway.
Oh, interesting. And you were saying that was kind of like a catalyst.
Did we ever find out why it wasn't there last year? Why there was no ESPN or Disney XD deal for last year's Evo? Like, do any of you have insight onto why that did not happen?
what did I hear? I don't think so, actually. I think it was kind of like just swept under the rug. Maybe like everyone just assumed that because the ratings weren't quite what they hoped for, that was it. Like they couldn't do it. Unless gootecks has something.
I think it was me. ESPN. I think I single-handedly derailed the entire broadcast, and they were like, "Nah, we're done."
I see. Okay, there we go. So gootecks is the reason Street Fighter wasn't on ESPN. And
sorry, I'm sorry.
It isn't NXT anymore.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, sorry about that, everybody. I know you're all were looking forward to it, and I apologize to the Smash Brothers community for derailing the Disney XD deal as well.
Do we think that NBC's viewership after Saturday Night Live will be any like better retention than ESPN viewership? I know like seeing what ESPN viewers react to video games is like a hilarious meme. Every time video games are on ESPN or esports, it's fucking incredible because I get to like read all the comments. But do we think that people watching NBC is going to be any better than that? Or are we just going to have another instance of what the fuck is on NBC right now?
It really depends on how they present it. It really depends. I don't know how ESPN presented it, but I'm hoping NBC. I mean, they've tapped the right people for it, right? Like they're talking to Level Up, obviously, who are running the thing, and they know what the FGC is about. So maybe, the people who are in charge of the broadcast will be able to present it in a way that even if you don't understand the FGC, you at least know you have an idea of what's going on the screen.
I think there is a unnecessary importance put onto things like TV ratings. I think that maybe at one point that was a strong factor in whether or not esports would succeed or not. I think that window has largely come and gone. I don't know about you guys, but I don't watch TV. I don't pay for TV service. I don't watch Saturday Night Live. I haven't watched SNL in years. I think it's a great opportunity for everybody involved. I hope it goes really well. I hope a ton of people watch. I don't really believe that broadcast TV, that being relevant on broadcast TV in any way has any sort of, it has real, like impact on the success of fighting games or esports at large, because I personally believe that ship has sailed. So I think that this event will go well. And I think due to the seemingly low investment from NBC, I don't think it has to do really well numbers wise in order for them to be like, that's interesting. Let's do more of this. And I think that's really all that matters. Is there going to be more retention? Maybe. It does depend on how they present it. Do I think that they're going to do some sort of crazy level of production to it? I don't think so, because I think if I read the post right, a couple of the players are going to be decided, on the spot like that day. So I think that means that there will be a somewhat limited amount. I'm sure there will be plenty of pre-production, but I think that there's not going to be as much as there would be, like, let's say when it comes to EVO Grand Finals, because that's a much bigger deal that has a lot more, let's say like a bigger budget and more time to prepare and whatnot. So I'm expecting this to go very smoothly, and I expect this to be something that continues. I'm not totally convinced that NBC or any other network really has that big of an impact on esports or FGC activity. Because case in point, EVO was not broadcast on TV last year and still broke viewership records and is likely to break more viewership records this year. So it's kind of like, let's flip it on its head and be like, okay, well, did the broadcast on in 2016 and 2017 lead to, if it wasn't broadcast last year, like, did everything fall apart? No, didn't matter. Everything just continued on as it did long before anybody in TV land gave a fuck about what we were doing. So, yeah, I I think the reason why I say it's a historic moment is because I can think about the history of this is what I was going to share earlier. So if you study the history of pro wrestling, in my opinion, you can predict the future of fighting games and chart essentially the growth of fighting games along the past growth of pro wrestling. And one of the things that was a milestone in pro wrestling was in the early 80s either right after WrestleMania 3 or right before that, which is when Hulk Hogan slammed Andre the Giant. There was actually sort of a lot of crossover between pro wrestling and like pop culture. So MTV was pairing, was working with WWF at the time. And basically there were, rock stars like Cyndi Lauper. And I mean, there were, the early 80s were like sort of defined in pro wrestling, not just by a lot of the celebrity crossover. And I feel like that is kind of where it's sort of heading right now with fighting games, right? Even specifically with NBC, because at the time it was crazy to have a pro wrestling, program on network TV, but Saturday night, what do they call it? Saturday night fights or Saturday night slam or Saturday night main event. Yes. Saturday night main event was a WWF produced program that aired on Saturday nights on NBC. And I'm sure at the time that sounded like lunacy to a lot of people as well. So to me, that's why I think that we are maybe just maybe sort of about to enter like an explosion of growth in fighting games. And I think that we will look back and be like, this NBC deal was one of those milestones.
Wait. So what happened after it got aired on NBC at Saturday Night Live?
It aired at least a handful of times. They continued to work with MTV, and due to the WrestleMania 3 main event where Hulk Hogan slammed Andre the Giant, that was sort of like the catalyst that sort of started the golden age of wrestling, let's say everywhere, times between 1983 and about, let's say, 1994, which is when the Attitude Era of WWE began. And Hulk Hogan, and so the main event, just indulge me for a second, but the main event of WrestleMania 1 was Hulk Hogan and Mr. T versus Rowdy Piper and Paul Orndorff. And so basically that was sort of like the first big celebrity crossover that happened on a big pro wrestling stage. And I think that, a lot of the stuff that we've been seeing over the years with like E-League and Shaq and all these other, the Steve Aokis of the world, and now let's say other people like Xavier Woods and Kenny Omega, like all of this sort of crossover, celebrity crossover into our world, to me, is very reminiscent of the type of pop culture crossovers that were happening in the early 80s with pro wrestling that helped to jumpstart it into, mainstream success.
All right, cool. Future's bright, everyone. FGC is about to go mainstream.
Obviously, I think it's going to take a few more years.
The League of Legends World Championships only had like 55 million people watching the final, so you're only 54,500,000 away, Ryan.
Woo!
No problem.
Okay, then here's the thing. Then why isn't that game on NBC?
Because it's a cluster.
Okay. All right. That's what I thought.
Okay.
That's what I thought.
Next topic.
Well, I mean, that is kind of what the FGC has as an advantage over other esports. There is like legacy value in a name like Street Fighter, right? Like, that Street Fighter IP still has mainstream appeal. But anyway,
of course there's legacy nostalgic value in the IP, but that's not what's going to take Street Fighter and other fighting games to the mainstream. What's going to take it to the mainstream, if it ever gets there, is that it has to be about the players, about the people as personalities, not about the game itself. The game is essentially secondary to the rivalry that exists between two people. That is what needs to get conveyed in these types of, mainstream broadcasts. And that's why for 10 years now, my focus is not on, how do I run the best tournament? My focus has been, how do I put together the most hype main event? Because that's the model that I think has the most potential, that I've been pursuing, not because there's so much that happens in tournaments where you cannot predict the outcome. The brackets go this way, so there's matches you don't get to see. Meanwhile, there's this other rivalry that exists because this guy hates that guy because that guy's a dick, and whatever. All these factors is what makes pro wrestling, UFC, pro boxing have existed with that model for decades. So why would this type of fighting be any different? That's the way I see the world. But who knows? I'm obviously I don't know shit, because if I did, we wouldn't be doing this podcast. But anyways, good luck to them. That is taking place Saturday, March 9th, live on NBC after Saturday Night Live. I will be tuned in. Oh, wait, I don't have a TV to tune into, but I'm sure I'll hear about it. So, let's see. Moving on. More esports news of the week. Big news. Super League Gaming goes public, their IPO. VentureBeat is reporting that Super League Gaming, their $25 million esports IPO, gets a cool reception. And when I think what they mean by cool is not like, wow, this is really cool. I think they mean cool as in this didn't go as well as we had anticipated. They raised $25 million, but the shares fell in the first day 12.3% from $11 a share to $9.64 a share, which is probably quite troubling to a lot of people that invested their money. But I will say that this is probably one of the first of many, many, many esports IPOs. So I think it's a healthy indicator of the market, and probably way too early to make any sort of fast judgments about the future of the company or the industry at large. But what do you guys think?
So firstly, I think we need to take a step back. I don't think people, like a lot of people, know what Super League Gaming is or what they do. Yes. So they're basically they want to introduce esports to high schoolers, and maybe colleges too, I think, but mainly high schoolers. So they're kind of like a league operator / platform. I think they're building a platform as well. Feel free to chime in here, because my knowledge on them is kind of I'm not an expert on Super League, but
they're actually even younger, not even high school. It's
it's
middle school, or
part of it is supposed to be part of it is them trying to position themselves as the little league of esports, of which I totally can see the value in. I believe I've heard recently that they're trying to expand from that particular model, but I personally think that Little League Esports is where a lot of the money is and will be in the overall esports ecosystem in the not too distant future. But today may not be that day. So I think their biggest challenge is I think $25 million helps staying alive long enough to help see that mission through. It's just a question of whether or not they're going to continue to focus on focus on that market rather than, let's say, trying to shift directions. But it's a brand new company, and I think there's a lot of potential in the concept.
Yeah, they did do some interesting things. So in 2017, I believe they're the ones who brought Minecraft as well as League of Legends to movie theaters, and had kids could go and sign up to play with their friends, and you play on the big screen, and that was a kind of cool little social thing that they could do.
They have teams in all these major cities across the U.S., L.A., San Francisco, Seattle, New York, Boston, etc. So I mean, they with the idea being that they can, before what they were doing is running Minecraft and League of Legends in movie theaters and Top Golf and all these other places. So I mean, they've been doing it for a while, and I think, like I said, I think that the concept has, it has legs.
Mm-hmm.
No, I agree with you, Ryan. I do think that the concept of, getting young kids into esports and to gaming in a more structured manner is something that competitive gaming needs. And especially, we've even talked about previously on this show, I feel like the collegiate and high school level specifically is definitely something that is one of the next big frontiers for competitive gaming and esports to get to that next level in terms of, having a realistic path for people to get into the pros of esports. Because even now, becoming a professional player in any video game is still a rather difficult task. They're all generally different from game to game, and that is quite different than when you think of traditional American or even European sports, where college and high school has a road to becoming a professional in sports if you really wanted to. Now, saying that, what the fuck did Super League Gaming think was going to happen when they IPO'd? Does the Little League of Esports think they were going to get like a good reception when they IPO'd as a company? I'm actually surprised it hasn't fallen further in terms of the amount that the shares are at right now. I only expect the shares to continue to fall further, and I would be selling. You should be selling as soon as it IPO'd. Buying it and selling really quickly. I am not bullish about this company's future in terms of the public market. I think out of all the esports companies to go public, this is not the one that should have gone. I think this is probably much more to appeal to the investors than it was to succeed for their company.
Yeah, I don't think that this was something that they thought that we're like, okay, we're going to IPO at 11, and then by next week it's going to be at like $50 or whatever. I don't think it's one of those situations. I think that this was actually them raising the money that they need to continue to operate, to see this vision through long enough for Little League Esports or whatever you want to call it to really take hold, because it is going to be. I mean, we haven't. Thinking about our NBC pro wrestling comparison, like we haven't even had WrestleMania 3 yet. So like we're like so early in the game right now. It's crazy. But I do.
They should be lucky they're at $5, let alone $50. Right?
Damn.
Yeah, man. I mean, maybe, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I read a little bit of I read a little bit of analysis before they went public, and that was they have some issues with revenue and whatnot. I think, and this is just their sort of unsolicited esports advice of the day, is that the market that they have is essentially perfect for Smash Brothers. So if they're not already trying to build inroads into cultivating the next generation of Super Smash Brothers players, I think that is a missed opportunity. But like I said, I don't know shit. So don't pay attention to the things that I say.
Very good.
But I wish them well, and I'm cheering for them, because I do believe that there is a huge opportunity for esports infrastructure for young people.
Yep.
So moving on, the Esports Observer is reporting that the G2 Esports closes $17.3 million growth funding round. I'm not even sure what G2 is. So...
Oh my god.
All right.
That's fantastic.
There are some Smash players on that team. Gootecks.
It's an esports
team.
team.
They must be doing something right, because they've raised $26.4 million.
At this point, I don't even think that it's an indication of doing things right. I think it's an indication that teams are running out of money and that everyone has been raising money these last few years because they've all run out of money. It's all getting really expensive to run teams.
Why? Wait. What are you trying to say? There's no way. What are you trying to say? There's no money in esports? Wait a minute. I was told that esports is here to save my fucking heathen ass, and that without it, I'd be face down in a gutter.
Wow, that turned out really dark.
Was I told
very
wrong?
quickly?
This is like when the Spanish would, go to all kinds of European countries would go to all kinds of other countries and be like, what you fucking savages need? You need fucking Jesus and Christianity, okay? What are you trying to say? There's no God? Jesus was a lie? Is that what you're saying? Esports is a lie? Is that what you're saying?
Okay, Ryan's in the gutter, the Spanish Inquisition, and there is no God equals esports. Thank you. That was a solid. that was a great way to intro that.
I was trying to give him props, dude. I was like, good job, guys. You raised $26 million. Then you're like, I don't think that's necessarily a good thing.
Well, I just wonder, like, what are they paying for? What are these investors actually paying for? Do you know, like, that is my question.
Look, we're paying. Look, come on, look.
Zorine, what are you actually buying?
Look, Zorine, you're a veteran. I got a lot of money, and I want to see my logo on some freaking jerseys up there on stage, because that's how there's a direct correlation between logo placement on stage and direct sales of product, right? Right, guys?
But it's not even a logo. Like, when an investor comes in and they put money towards this fund, like, I'm just like, I just want someone to tell me, like, what are they buying? What are they actually buying? Somebody tell me.
That's what they were.
No one's able to answer. Everyone's like, well, I don't know, but he's thrown in $2 million, so I'm gonna throw in 1.5 mil as well. And hey, we got all these big numbers thrown around, millions and millions of dollars, 100,000 people watching, whatever, like 25 million people playing this video game. Let me throw my money into this thing.
I think like the actual real answer is that everyone is looking towards the future. Everyone thinks that because of the space how it is now, and how many people are watching esports currently, and how many people play video games, especially for investors that have no fucking idea what any of that means, and you just throw a bunch of numbers at them, and you prepare these really nice-looking decks for everybody, that in the future, there will be 1 billion people watching esports in like 5 years, and it's going to make $1 trillion, and then everyone's going to make their money back. I think that's probably how people are viewing these investments.
Right. I feel like we shouldn't say these things because it's like we're like digging the hole deeper for ourselves, right? But
look. First off, I'm like fucking Rick and Morty, dude. I got the grave outside already ready to bury my present day self in. Don't worry about me. I'll be fine. But I think what you're actually saying. I'm reminded of. You guys want to hear a joke? I'm reminded of this joke.
Oh God.
How do you make $1 million in esports? You start with 10. No.
Wait, I don't
Incredible. $10 million.
You start with 10 million. How do you make $1 million in esports? You start with 10 million. Exactly. Anyways, what are they buying? I don't know. They're buying very over. Yeah. Okay. See, look at these bomber jackets, 90 euros. G2. They got their merch game on point. Who doesn't? I know. I just found out that G2 just raised a ton of money, and I have to hold myself back from buying one of these jackets. So I think really what you're asking, Zorine, is whether or not big companies and big people with money want to be invested in clothing like bomber jackets,
esports merch. Yeah.
And don't get me wrong, if you take the gootecks Guide to Esports Monetization Success 101 course, merch is certainly one of the revenue sources that we cover in this course. But it's not the only one, and I don't think that it's the one that these investors were most excited to sink money into. But I don't know shit, so don't pay attention to me. But one of you has got to explain why this is a big deal.
Wait, the funding? Why it's a big deal?
It's not a big deal. That's why I said to skip the story. I even wrote in the document, fuck this story. Why are we covering this? It's a story.
I put it there because I think it's a big deal. I think it's the biggest, the most, the highest amount raised for a European esports org so far. So that's kind of like an interesting milestone to me. And the fact that in total that they've raised up to 26 million is crazy, because they have a LoL team, which I think is their biggest team. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it's their biggest team, and they have like they had a CS:GO team. I still don't know what's happening there, but they have like players in all these different esports, and they seem to be pretty solid, and they have like good partners in the space as well. But the fact that they've reached this milestone, I think it's huge, because like we just keep on seeing these numbers get bigger and bigger every year, and it's like, at what point does it stop? Anyway.
Well, I mean, go ahead.
This is a good segue actually into the next topic, where money is actually existing. Not investors are giving money to then disappear in thin air because it will never have a return, and all the team owners are looking for is to cash out in 3 to 4 years to someone else who wants to buy the team. Where, I mean, Ryan, you want to?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So The Verge is reporting that Fortnite is putting up $30 million for its World Cup final that it's happening in July in New York City.
In addition to this, they're putting up $1 million every week. $1 million weeklies, Ryan. Not $100.
God damn, if only the FGC could get like a bit of that money. That is so insane to me.
$1 million online weeklies, $30 million final, which will be the largest esports prize pool of all time, beating out the Dota 2 internationals the last 2 years, which I think hit like 23 and 24 million, respectively. And this will all be part of $100 million in prize money given out in 2019. Mm-hmm. And do you know why, Zorine and gootecks, they can do this?
I mean, I have a guess, but I mean, I guess I'll just let you tell us.
Because unlike fucking G2, Epic makes $100 million in a fucking month off of Fortnite. They made the entire prize pool of 2019 in 1 month in revenue for this game. And this is just a drop in the bucket for this company now.
Right.
How nice of them to give it back to the community.
I mean, yeah, like, okay, so let's take it one step further, right? So yeah, of course they put up $100 million because they're making that much per month from this game. So, but there's no question that currently with this modern day esports model, the publishers and the developers are the ones that have all the money to spend on esports stuff, thereby essentially totally shifting the balance of power away from the teams and away from all the other big money investors that have been putting so much of their hard-earned money and investing it into the ecosystem, only to have, in this instance, one of the biggest publishers on the planet running the show and dictating a lot of the resources in this economy. Is this what you want? Rod? Is this the world that you want, where all the developers are putting in this money and all the money that we invested into G2 esports pales by comparison? Is that what you want? Do you think that the future of esports is all about which publisher can put up the most amount of prize money and not the normal everyday rich people and celebrities that are investing into this ecosystem? Is that the way you think it should go?
Yeah.
Okay.
Honestly.
I mean, publishers have always had the power. Like, I don't think that was ever a question. It was always the publishers. Like, they are, Riot Games and Epic Games. They are the NBA. They are the ESPN. They are, like, basically the whole thing itself. Like, they invented the game. It's like saying the NBA invented basketball. Like, I think that's probably the best analogy in T-sports that we can say. But, yeah, like, publishers have always had the power. Like, that's not really a new thing, and if anything, it's a problem.
That's the point that I was alluding to, Zorine. I think that it is a problem as well. Not that there's really anything that any of us can do about it, but anytime there's some sort of solo entity, putting in controlling a large amount of the ecosystem around that industry. We have words for these things in America. The words monopoly come to mind, and antitrust lawsuits and whatnot. Not to say that anybody is doing anything wrong, just that I think these are the instances where later on down the line, unions and regulations start to be formed and come out of the woodwork and whatnot. But obviously we're all just sort of wandering around in the dark with a Bird Box style blindfold on us, just sort of feeling around to see where the next opportunity in esports is. So nobody has it figured out.
I mean, I'm all about giving a hard time to these developers and publishers who, although it is their games, very often have no idea what the fuck they're doing in terms of the competitive community, the competitive scene, the esports scene, how to treat the pro players, how to make a good tournament. Like, usually all of these things, traditionally, developers and publishers have not done a very good job with. But of course, as esports has gotten bigger and it has grown over the last few years, publishers have taken more control over these aspects, and you see things like Overwatch League and the League of Legends Championship Series, and there are only certain things that the developer and the publisher can do that the ecosystem is not able to do on its own. So Epic has made a whole bunch of stupid decisions regarding Fortnite esports and the way that they've handled competitive Fortnite, and I'm going to continue to trash them as they make these poor decisions for the overall players and the community. But at the same time, giving out $100 million in prize money is going to make a lot of their players happy with money. And that is, in the end, only a good thing. Epic themselves got $1.25 billion in investment only a few months ago, if people shouldn't forget about that.
From the Chinese.
Who own just about everything in the world right now. And, Epic is going to make their money. They could very well have not given out nearly as much prize money. They probably could have given out $10 million in prize money, and it still would have been a huge deal. But they went all out to make the number, something that was unfathomable even a year ago. There was no way anyone on the planet would have expected or predicted this level of financial support to the players. And I think that is good, because actually, going back to the point about G2, one of the very unique things about the competitive Fortnite and Fortnite esports scene is that professional players do not need a team. They really don't need teams to survive or to succeed. And even in many instances, signing to a team going into this $100 million tournament is actually going to be bad for players because of the contracts between the teams and the players. Teams are going to be making a lot of money where they really probably shouldn't, because the players don't need the teams, because teams take a cut of the prize money.
I mean, I think
Not
that's
all of them.
That's an outdated thing. I don't think most modern day teams, or most teams who are like on top of the game, like, they don't take a cut of the prize money. That's kind of outdated now. And
Say it louder for us, Zorine. Because if I say it, nobody hears it.
Most teams don't take a cut of the prize money.
And
That's
they should
old.
take a cut of the prize money.
Sorry,
shouldn't.
wait. Why? Okay, sorry. Look, I just got my big esports funding investment. I'm paying for the travel expenses to send all these players everywhere. If they win, why shouldn't I be getting a cut of their earnings? I mean, it's because of my funding that I secured from these, esports funding people that these players are able to go. Why shouldn't I, the person who paid for it, be entitled to a cut of what they're making?
Slasher.
Oh, me, of course. Fuck y'all, Ryan. I'm doing the fucking work. I'm going to the tournament. I'm winning the damn game, not you, my owner. It's me and the coach and my team that is making sure that we win. You ain't getting jack shit. You just got that investment to make money off the advertising of the team and me as a marketability of a player. I'm going to keep my fucking prize money.
Wait. You're telling me
a dick.
You're telling me that I can make money off of you, the player, without actually taking a cut of your earnings? All right, we got to go back to the drawing board. Yeah, that's wild. This is crazy. This is wild. Okay, well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that insight, Slasher. I have to go back and rethink most of my esports business now.
Can I just say, just quickly on this World Cup tournament, and this is crazy to me. So there are 10 weeks of open qualifiers, and then the top 100 solo players, and then the top 50 duo teams will then go to the World Cup finals in New York City. And even if you place last at this tournament, you will win at least $50,000. That's per player.
Yep. So
just qualifying for the World Cup in of itself is already awesome. Like, I think for a player, that is so insane to me. Can you imagine if the fighting games community had that? That's so crazy.
I actually, no, I can't. That's why I've been trying. That's why I've been taking a cut of all my players' earnings. Glad I showed up today. Jeez, my esports world has been turned onto its head. This is crazy.
Yeah, they talk to those investors.
Yeah, no, I'm going to call them right now and tell them that we need to restructure all of our deals because apparently we've been taking advantage of certain players in our scene for far too long, and I won't stand for it. Not at all. Everybody's getting new. Yeah, I know. I've seen the light. Everybody's going to get new adjusted contracts.
Thank you.
Crazy.
Taking care of the people.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I mean, of course, they're my players.
Yeah, that 16-year-old really talented kid who won the world championship or whatever game definitely appreciates it. Yeah.
Well, you're welcome. This is why we do this show. I guess finally we'll close with some good news. There is a team, an Overwatch League team that went 42-0 and recently has achieved their very first victory in Overwatch League. The underest of underdogs. I forget the name of the team, but they're from Shanghai.
Shanghai Dragons.
The Shanghai Dragons have won their very first Overwatch League game. What a milestone. Congratulations. I think the moral of the story is never give up because that victory could be just around the corner.
Yeah. Imagine playing an entire season without winning in a single game.
I'm definitely. I don't have to imagine.
Yeah, Ryan gootecks knows. I mean, he knows all about this. I mean,
why do you think I don't? Why do you think I don't play team games like that, dude? I ain't trying to relive, I ain't trying to relive that life, dude. You talk about being a 9-year-old playing basketball, your team can't win a fucking game all season, dude. Fuck out of here. Sorry, I'm just I'm reliving some early trauma right now. Sorry.
Gootecks is right. A win could be right around the corner or 400 days from now. One or the other. You might be able to get a single victory in more than a year. It is possible. I mean, maybe you go to 300 tournaments. You go 0-2 299 times, and then that 300th time, you win a game, and instead of getting 256 in that tournament, you only get 128. And you know what? You should feel a lot better about your single victory, which meant nothing overall in the greater scheme of things. Because you know what? You did it. You overcome obstacles and hurdles and adversity, and you came through and you beat the other worst team in the league to get your first victory, to be able to finally show yourself, you know what? I can kind of do something sort of for once, except for next week I'm probably going to lose again. But you did it. You persevered, and that is what's important. Thank you, Ryan. You said everything that I just did in your own words, and I know all of the chat agrees with you. Pog chance for Shanghai Dragons. 1-42. The dream. Hopefully it's not 1-67 at the end.
Hey, let it be known that they never lost 43 games in a row.
Nobody beats the Shanghai Dragons 43 games in a row. Okay? Nobody. Look at this, could be the beginning of like a 42 game win streak. Who knows?
Yeah.
We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Beautiful.
You gotta have, this is why they're pro players, Rod. Because they train, they stick together. Obviously, their teamwork is improving. They're doing something right. What do you're the Overwatch expert. What do you think changed?
They replaced the entire team with new players. And you know what?
Sometimes that helps.
It was helpful. The Shanghai Dragons.
What do you think that conversation was like? Right? Like, all right, guys. So we've given you guys a lot of chances. Maybe even
42
40 chances to get it right. But we just can't give you 41. I mean, at that point, to be honest, if I were on that team, like, I don't think I would have made it that far. I think I would have called it after at least 30 games.
I think the Overwatch League season locks them in, right? Like, there's a lock period, and then there's like a free agents period afterwards, which is probably what happened. Yeah, so they were pretty much stuck there, like, with that roster for the whole season.
So the Shanghai Dragons won without any Chinese players competing. Fantastic.
I mean, London Spitfire kind of did the same thing when they won without any actual British players competing.
I mean, that was kind of like the New York team, right? Wasn't the New York team all Koreans?
Yeah, the New York team is all Koreans still. And the London team is still all
Do you guys see this as a problem? I mean,
this was discussed like way back.
Yeah, I mean, look, in traditional sports, the teams are made up of like 99% of players not from the city they're representing. So
sure.
No,
but
it seems the same.
But do you think that at the inception of most of these teams, like for example, baseball in the 1910s and 20s, I mean, do you really think that most of the players that were on those teams at the time weren't like mostly local native players at the dawn of the ML, Major League Baseball?
I mean, probably, but we're way past that. I mean, we're in current day times where winning matters. So unless you want to lose like the Shanghai Dragons 42 times in a row, your best bet is usually to get the best players. The Shanghai Dragons elected to get mostly Chinese players because they were the only Chinese team in the first season. And you know what? Look how that went.
Dash.
I hear what you're saying, Rod.
Are you?
Yeah, you're saying that it doesn't matter.
Do you know the Shanghai Dragons have the longest losing streak in history of sports, of major sports? Because they got local players.
I'm sure there have been other really. I feel like I personally am a representative of one of the. I mean, it wasn't pro sports, but there's all sorts of losing streaks going around in all kinds of sports on many different levels. But I think that I hear what you're saying, that you need to find the best team possible.
Ryan, as a New York Overwatch player, if the New York Overwatch team chose all New York players, they would have also gotten 0-40. So it's probably a good idea they didn't do that.
Well, the counterpoint to that is, I think that because these leagues and teams are in their infancies, what's less important is winning, and what's more important is trying to mobilize and energize your local fan base. Mm-hmm. Because I personally don't believe that a team of Koreans from Korea, I mean, I don't know, whatever. I don't believe that imported players from any region would do as well to excite the local New York audience as would a team of, players that were from, or at least somewhat related to, New York City.
Yeah,
regardless of performance.
You know all about this because a New York City native named Justin Wong had to come over and carry Southern California for a number of years.
Sure. Okay. But what is that? Okay, number one, FGC is not a part of esports, so that's not even in the equation.
You're right. You got me.
I'm talking about what the local, super highly targeted esports market will get excited about. Is it a team of imported players that I'm sure do great in most instances, or is it a team of players that are from New York that would get New York most excited about what's going on?
You're from LA, okay? You know how LA media is. It's not as brutal as New York media. But the New York Overwatch team, NYXL, was probably the best sports team in New York for like a good number of months last year. And they might actually be the best sports team in New York right now.
I'm not talking about what's good or bad.
No, that's what I'm talking about. All that matters is winning. It doesn't fucking matter if the entire New York team has a bunch of New Yorkers, if they're fucking losers, if they're fucking terrible, and they're fucking awful. They will be shit on literally every single day until the end of time. All that matters is winning and getting the fucking W. I don't give a shit where the player is from. Get the best players in the world, sign in New York, and fucking win. That is all that matters.
I think that's all that matters to you.
No,
but
I am from
the
New
people
York.
that I'm thinking about
New York.
are the people who are not heavily involved or invested already in esports.
I mean, I've gone to all these New York watch parties, and I know that they value winning over fucking the players being
Those
from New
are
York.
the people that are already there. I'm talking about the people who are yet to have gone to an Overwatch League game. The people who don't even know that they would give a fuck about Overwatch yet.
Dude, if NYXL went 0-40 with a bunch of New York players, I would fucking clown on them maybe 100 times as harder than I would the Shanghai Dragons. I would be clowning on them literally every single day along with everyone else in this city. It doesn't matter at all. A bunch of fucking loser-ass, garbage New York players can go sit at home, maybe get good at the fucking game, and then they could be on NYXL if they want to.
If I could just interject, two things. I think, firstly, engaging local fan base is important, and it is difficult if your roster of players does not even speak the same language.
Exactly.
I think that is difficult.
Thank you.
Secondly, I don't think winning equates to popularity. NYXL is like, in terms of social media following, they are mid-tier amongst all the other Overwatch teams. In fact, the most popular Overwatch team, if you look at the social media metrics, is San Francisco Shock. And
Why do you think that is?
I actually don't know.
Botting.
I would... followed by the Dallas
fake
Fuel.
followers.
Dallas Fuel is the second most popular team. I would hazard a guess it's got something to do with the personalities of their players and maybe also the geographical location, San Francisco being a popular city.
Twitter?
Yes, Twitter.
No, they literally bought the Twitter account. The San Francisco Shock Twitter account is literally the old Archon Twitter that they bought out and then they rebranded to the Shock. That is literally the only reason it has more followers. So it was bought.
Ooh.
Yes.
Okay.
Ooh, you heard it here first.
Wow. Well, NYXL is still middle of the chart, so I don't know about all the other teams and whether they bought Twitter followers. And the least popular team is actually not Shanghai Dragons, although they're very close to the bottom. It's Florida Mayhem.
Well, duh. Florida Mayhem went like 3-37 or whatever the fuck it was.
But they didn't
0-40.
0-42.
No, but 0-40 is like a novelty. Okay, that is like an incredible moment to watch. Florida is just terrible, but they weren't terrible enough. Okay, there's like an in between where you could be bad, but you're not bad enough. So it didn't become like a huge spectacle. Look,
they weren't even good enough at being bad, is what you're saying.
Yes, you are exactly right.
Oh my god!
And you know what? Like Twitch chat has it right. I am a New Yorker. I've been born and lived here my whole life. I am a Knicks fan. Okay. I am a born and raised Knicks fan. Our team is fucking bad. Okay, we've missed the playoffs like the last 14 or the last 15 years. It's the worst team in the league. We have the worst fucking owner in the NBA. This franchise is a fucking disgrace to the NBA. I don't want this fucking shit. If they brought over, I don't care who they get as long as we win. And it's all that people really care about in American sports is being a winner, not being a local fucking fan base. Fuck the Knicks. Fuck the Knicks and the great saying of Mr. Yipes. Fuck the Knicks.
All right. Well, that is all of the esports news that we have today. You heard it here first. Fuck the Knicks. The makeup of your team is not important. And praise be to Epic Games for sharing the wealth with us lowly commoners. And of course, who can forget all of the generous investors that have contributed to the esports ecosystem that are now waiting for that ROI.
Invest in our show. I heard that's a great ROI.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what, there is one company out there that has invested in our show, and that is XSplit. Thank you to XSplit for helping to provide a lot of the production power and resources necessary to bring the small handful of you that care about this show, this, super insightful insider information that I know, even though there's not a lot of you, I know that there are people out there that get value from it. So thank you to XSplit for helping us out. We hope to continue to do more and more and more Untitled Esports shows until one day we might even have a name. All right. Well, this was a good show. Unless there's anything interesting from the chat or any sort of last words from you guys, I think we covered all there is to know in esports this week.
Cool. Thanks, everyone.
Yeah, thank you. Fuck the Knicks.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for watching. You can hit the follow or subscribe or the like or whatever. Hit it, whatever button you want. Even a thumbs down is good. Zorine, where do people go for more Zorine in between now and next time?
You can find me on Twitter at Zorine. That's at Zorine. That is my real name. It is my first name.
You can also your government name, Zorine.
It is my birth name. And I am on Instagram, YouTube, Twitch, just Team Zorine, one word.
All right. Team Zorine, go and please follow Zorine for all of the latest updates of what's going on with her and the rest of esports. Slasher, where do people go for the world's #1 esports consultant?
I ain't got shit, but I'll have news on that soon. Actually,
Ooh. Are you going to break the news on this show? Are you going to scoop yourself?
Nope, I welcome anyone to scoop me, you fucking pussies.
Okay, you want me to scoop you then? I'll scoop you for next time.
There you go. Thank you. Thank you. That's what I'm talking about.
All right. All right, guys. Thanks so much for joining us tonight here on the Untitled Esports Show. I think this was episode number 7, but who can even keep track anymore?
It can't be number 7. This is actually, is it really?
Yeah, it is. It's 7.
Who knows? 7, 8, who knows? It feels like forever, but the time goes so fast when I'm hanging out with you guys. And when we're hanging out with you guys. So thanks so much for joining us. Thanks to Lewis from XSplit for holding it down in production.
Yeah, thank you, Lewis. Lewis is a shit.
Lewis.
That's who we should be thanking.
Yep. And thanks to everybody. Yeah, thanks to everybody for watching and listening from home, wherever you are. We'll be back next week around this time. I think we did pretty good this time, going on right after the EVO Games announcement. Thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Gootecks. You can follow me on Twitter and the Instagram at Gootecks, Gootecks. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.